Before banking secrecy, before shell companies, before wire transfers disguised as consulting fees, nations discovered a way to move money invisibly. They hired pirates, not as criminals, not as outlaws, but as financial tools. In the 1500s and 1600s, global trade was exploding. Empires were rising. Armies were expensive. Wars bankrupted kings faster than they could mint coins. And every nation needed a way to gather wealth without admitting where that wealth came from. So they turned to the one group who specialized in untraceable money, pirates, or as governments politely called them, privateers. A pirate was a thief. A privateer was a thief with paperwork. With a signature, a royal seal, and a letter of marque, a pirate became an offshore financial instrument. Someone who could rob ships, steal gold, seize cargo, and funnel the profits back to the crown, while the crown denied everything. It was the perfect loophole. If a nation taxed its people, rebellion followed. If a nation stole from its rivals, war followed. But if a pirate stole from a rival, that was just the cost of sailing. Privateers raided Spanish galleons carrying silver from the New World. They intercepted merchant ships loaded with spices, silk, and gold. They attacked rivals in the dead of night, took their cargo, sold it in the black markets of the Caribbean, and quietly sent a cut back to the kings who hired them. It was laundering, centuries before the word existed. Money entered the system dirty. It emerged clean. No kingdom admitted its source. No accountant ever wrote it down. Caribbean ports became the first offshore financial centers. No regulations, no oversight, no questions. A pirate could steal a fortune, sell it in Jamaica, deposit the profits with a friendly governor, and walk away as a merchant. Meanwhile, nations used these funds to finance navies, build fortresses, pay spies, bribe officials, sabotage rivals, fuel expansion. Pirates weren't a sideshow. They were the backbone of early hidden finance. Nations realized a powerful truth. If you want deniability, use criminals. If you want secrecy, pay them in cash. If you want wealth no one can trace, send them to sea. Pirates were the world's first offshore accounts, unregulated, unrecorded, and ungoverned. And no nation mastered this dark financial art better than Elizabethan England. When Elizabeth I inherited the English throne in 1558, her kingdom was broke. Not struggling, not short on cash. Broke. England was drowning in debt, its navy was rotting, and its rivals, especially Spain, controlled oceans, colonies, and rivers of gold flowing from the Americas. The crown's treasury was so empty that officials melted down palace silverware just to mint coins. Elizabeth needed money, but she couldn't raise taxes without sparking revolt. She couldn't borrow more without collapsing the crown. And she couldn't openly attack Spain, Europe's superpower, without triggering a war England could not win. So she did something far more brilliant. She built a shadow financial system, one powered not by bankers or merchants, but by pirates, or, as she called them, privateers. With a stroke of a quill, Elizabeth transformed outlaws into state-sponsored financial weapons. Men like Sir Francis Drake, men who knew every smuggling route, every hidden cove, every blind spot in Spanish patrols, suddenly sailed under the Queen's blessing. But their mission wasn't exploration. Their mission was extraction. Drake's raids on Spanish treasure fleets weren't piracy. They were covert financial operations, designed to capture gold, silver, and valuables off the books and funnel them straight into England's unofficial treasury. And the results were staggering. In 1579, Drake captured a single Spanish galleon carrying so much gold and silver that the haul was worth more than the entire English crown's annual revenue, combined. Elizabeth didn't just accept the money. She hid it. She moved it through trusted courtiers. She laundered it through merchants. She reinvested it into shipbuilding, intelligence, and war preparation. She transformed stolen Spanish wealth into legitimate English power. This wasn't piracy. This was nation-building through economic theft. And the brilliance was in the denial. If Spain complained, England shrugged. "These are independent pirates," they said. "Nothing to do with the crown," they insisted. But the truth was carved into every coin minted from stolen silver. England's rise was financed in the shadows. Elizabeth's secret fortune funded the expansion of the Royal Navy, the navy that would later defeat the Spanish Armada and shift global power forever. Her pirates didn't just steal, they built an empire's financial foundation, and the blueprint she created, off-book funding, deniable operations, covert wealth pipelines, would become the model for empires centuries later. Because laundering money through pirates wasn't a loophole, it was the birth of state-sponsored secrecy. The British Empire didn't emerge from wealth. It emerged from hidden wealth. And other nations noticed. By the 1600s, the Caribbean wasn't just a cluster of islands. It was the world's first financial dark zone, a place where nations hid their crimes, pirates hid their fortunes, and empires laundered more money than any bank would ever admit. Everything the modern world associates with offshore secrets, tax havens, shell companies, untraceable transfers, was born in the Caribbean. But the system didn't start with banks. It started with pirates and with empire. England, France, Spain, and the Netherlands all wanted global power. But global power required something they didn't have: money that couldn't be traced back to them. So they built a shadow economy on islands perfectly positioned for secrecy: Jamaica, Nassau, Tortuga, Barbados. Each one became a no-questions-asked financial hub long before the term existed. Here's how it worked. A pirate attacked a Spanish treasure ship. He seized gold, silver, sugar, rum, tobacco, silk, anything of value. He sailed to a Caribbean port run by a European governor who pretended not to see the blood on the deck. The pirates sold the stolen goods at a discount. The governor bought them using government funds. Then those goods were shipped to Europe as legitimate imports. This was laundering, early, crude, but brutally effective. Dirty money became clean merchandise. Criminal profit became state revenue. Pirates became unofficial employees of empire. And the Caribbean became the beating heart of global black finance. But the genius of the system wasn't in the stealing. It was in the paperwork. Governors forged logbooks. Merchants altered bills of sale. Treasuries wrote false inventories. Courts looked the other way. Every layer made the money cleaner. Every signature made it harder to trace. Every port acted like a modern offshore bank, complete with immunity, secrecy, and political protection. Soon, the islands evolved into financial ecosystems. Warehouses that stored stolen goods, markets that traded looted cargo, banks that held pirate gold, taverns where deals were signed, harbors where rival nations pretended not to spy on each other. This wasn't chaos. This was organized corruption, international, profitable, and mutually beneficial. Even legitimate traders got sucked into the system. If they wanted to survive, they had to buy, sell, and transport goods that everyone knew were stolen. But by the time the goods arrived in Europe, they were wrapped in so much legal fiction that no court could prove otherwise. The Caribbean didn't just enable money laundering, it industrialized it. It became the prototype for Switzerland, Panama, the Cayman Islands, the entire global offshore economy. Nations realized a simple truth. If your wealth passes through the Caribbean, its history disappears, and that invisibility built empires. But it also built something else, a new class of secret funds that would shape the world far beyond the age of pirates. Every empire has two budgets. The first is public, written in ledgers, debated in courts, inspected by treasurers, recorded for history. The second is hidden, a shadow budget built on smuggling, stolen wealth, forged documents, and covert profit streams that never appear in any official account. And during the height of global colonial expansion, this second budget became the engine of empire. Long before modern intelligence agencies existed, nations created secret funds, pools of untraceable money used to wage silent wars, bribe foreign leaders, finance coups, and build influence across continents. And the origins of these funds were not noble, they were criminal. In the 1600s, the Dutch East India Company, the world's first multinational corporation, wasn't just trading spices. It was laundering money at a scale that modern banks can only envy. Its ships carried black market goods alongside legal cargo. Its officers skimmed profits from ports in Indonesia, China, and India, and its governors remitted unofficial revenues back to Amsterdam through shadow accounts. The company was a business, but it behaved like a cartel. Its secret profits built canals, financed wars, and propped up the Dutch Republic. Without its off-book income, the Netherlands could not have become a global power. France wasn't far behind. French corsairs, government-backed pirates, plundered Spanish, English, and Portuguese ships. Their gold was stored in hidden vaults in Brittany and Normandy. The monarchy laundered the wealth through merchants in Marseille and Lyon, transforming blood-soaked treasure into export revenue. It was nation-building powered by theft. But no empire mastered covert finance quite like Britain. England's official treasury funded armies, but its imperial slush funds funded everything else: espionage, bribery, proxy wars, revolts in rival empires, and political manipulation from Ireland to India. These funds were fed by pirate plunder, East India Company bribes, smuggling networks, slave trade profits, opium money, unregistered colonial taxes. Every empire needed deniability. Every empire needed liquidity. Every empire needed money that didn't exist on paper. And so they built financial pipelines no ordinary citizen could trace. Secret vaults, private ledgers, ships with no official registry, payments routed through Caribbean islands, commissions hidden behind trade posts and gifts. Empires didn't just grow through conquest. They grew through financial invisibility. The shadow funds gave them the freedom to do things the law couldn't allow, and the public couldn't know. And this shadow system didn't vanish. It evolved. Because when the age of sales ended, the age of spies began, and covert finance became the backbone of global power. Next came the Cold War, and with it, the largest black budgets the world had ever seen. When the Second World War ended, nations didn't stop laundering money. They industrialized it. Because the Cold War wasn't just a struggle of ideologies, it was a struggle of financing, fought not with armies on open fields, but with secret budgets, hidden bank accounts, and money pipelines that moved billions without ever touching a ledger. Every superpower learned the same lesson. If you want to shape the world in silence, you must fund the world in silence. And so the United States and the Soviet Union built the largest covert financial networks in human history. The CIA, forbidden from operating openly, created a universe of shell companies, airlines, consulting firms, shipping companies, each one a disguise for smuggling weapons, moving agents, and funding coups. These companies generated profit, laundered it through friendly banks, and redistributed it into black budgets with no congressional oversight. Air America wasn't just a plane, it was a pipeline. Front companies in Europe weren't just offices. They were conduits for millions in untraceable funds. The Soviet Union mirrored the strategy. The KGB built its own web of offshore accounts, hidden in Switzerland, Luxembourg, Cyprus, used to bribe politicians, finance communist parties, and maintain influence across Africa, Asia, and Latin America. Soviet trade missions acted as banks. Soviet cultural centers acted as laundromats. Every handshake hid a wire transfer. But the most dangerous financial weapon of the Cold War wasn't espionage. It was proxy armies. The US and USSR funded militias, revolutionaries, dictators, and criminal networks, all paid through covert channels that made pirates look amateur. The CIA funneled cash through narcotics pipelines, foreign intelligence agencies, Caribbean banks, unregistered foundations, humanitarian charities. The KGB funneled money through diamond smuggling, arms deals, diplomatic pouches, communist front groups, offshore cooperatives. Entire wars were financed without a single official dollar or ruble recorded. Vietnam, Afghanistan, Angola, Nicaragua. Conflicts fueled by money that governments denied existed. Even the drug trade became part of the system. Rebel groups in Southeast Asia and Latin America were quietly allowed, even encouraged, to sell narcotics to finance anti-communist or pro-Soviet operations. Intelligence agencies looked the other way because the money kept flowing. This wasn't corruption. This was strategy. The Cold War proved something extraordinary. You can wage global warfare indefinitely if your finances remain invisible. Black budgets gave superpowers reach without accountability. Covert cash-shaped governments toppled leaders, built movements, and erased them. The world thought it had outgrown the age of pirates. But the pirates never disappeared. They simply traded ships for suitcases, sea routes for shell companies, and hidden coves for offshore banks. And today, their blueprint still structures the global financial system. People think piracy ended when the age of sails ended, when wooden ships disappeared, when cannons fell silent, when the Caribbean became a tourist destination instead of a battlefield. But piracy didn't vanish. It evolved. Because the pirate economy, the laundering networks, the hidden profits, the deniable operations, wasn't a product of the 1600s. It was a prototype, and the modern world runs on it. The blueprint is the same. Hide the source, move the money, deny everything. Centuries ago, pirates sailed to Nassau to turn stolen gold into legitimate cargo. Today, corporations wire money to Cayman subsidiaries to turn taxable profit into untouchable wealth. Then, pirates filled Caribbean warehouses with looted sugar and silver. Now, billionaires fill shell companies with anonymous assets. Then, pirate captains used fake logbooks to disguise their raids. Now, financial giants use creative accounting to disguise entire empires. Nothing changed except the tools. Switzerland replaced Tortuga. Panama replaced Port Royal. Singapore replaced Nassau. Crypto mixers replaced gold smugglers. But the purpose remained identical: erase the trail. Governments continue to use secret funds, now called black budgets, to finance operations they cannot admit. Intelligence agencies still funnel money through shell companies, the same way governors once funneled treasure through pirate ports. Covert networks still move billions through donations, contracts, consulting fees, and development funds that exist only on paper. The pirate economy is everywhere. Oligarchs hiding fortunes behind 30 layers of offshore trusts, drug cartels laundering billions through luxury real estate, multinational corporations shifting profits across borders like smugglers moving contraband, intelligence agencies funding wars through money that doesn't exist, governments using cyber criminals the way kings once used privateers. The world calls it finance. History calls it piracy with paperwork. And the danger today is far greater, because secrecy is no longer an island. It's a global network. Money can cross the planet in milliseconds. Shell companies can be created in seconds. Crypto wallets can store billions with no name attached. And artificial intelligence can forge documents, signatures, and financial identities with terrifying precision. The modern world didn't eliminate laundering. It industrialized it. The pirate blueprint survived because it solved a problem nations still face. How do you do things you cannot be caught doing? Empires once answered that question with pirates. Superpowers answered with intelligence agencies. Corporations answered with offshore banks. Criminal networks answered with crypto tumblers. The structures are different. The logic is identical. Because in the end, the world never stopped using pirates. It just gave them new flags, new tools, new oceans made of data instead of water. The age of piracy never died. It scaled. And every economy on Earth is still sailing inside its shadow.